You have exactly one Earth rotation to surrender your planet to the Denobulan Empire. If you do not submit, your species will be exterminated. The ultimatum from Emperor Taurus left no room for compromise. But Ambassador Donald Murphy was done compromising with galactic bullies. I have one warning for you, Taurus. Stay the hell away from Earth. Murphy smashed the end transmission control on his comm panel, not waiting for a reply. He turned to his aide, Lieutenant Zoe Valdez. Get me a priority 1 channel to the world president, now. Valdez's fingers flew over her console. Sir, are you sure it was wise to be so confrontational? The Denobulan fleet is... I'm aware of what we're up against, Lieutenant, Murphy snapped, his gaze fixed on the view screen showing the blue marble of Earth, all that stood between humanity and subjugation or annihilation. But we don't grovel. Not to them, not to anyone. Open the channel. On the Denobulan throne world, Emperor Taurus seethed with rage. The arrogance of the humans to dare defy him. His clawed fists clenched as he replayed the humans' impudent response. Sire, we must respond swiftly and without mercy, urged his chief counselor Zod. If we allow the humans to resist, other worlds may follow their example. We must make them an example. Counselor, ready the fleet, growled Emperor Taurus, his reptilian eyes flashing. I will grind their cities to dust and their bones to meal. This Earth will learn that Denobulan rule is absolute. The Terran Council chamber buzzed with grim debate as Ambassador Murphy laid out the Denobulan threat. The specter of extinction loomed over the gathered world leaders. We cannot win against the Denobulan war machine, implored General Strucker. Our only chance is to negotiate terms of surrender. Perhaps we can salvage something. If we flee to the stars, we may yet survive to fight another day, interjected Admiral Singh. We cannot defend against their armada. So we bow and scrape to Xeno scum, or turn tail and run. Murphy looked at them all with disgust. I didn't give them our answer just to take it back now. We don't submit, and we don't flee. He turned to President Xander. They're bullies, sir. You let them intimidate you once, and they never stop. Xander steepled his fingers for a long moment, then met Murphy's eyes and nodded. Ambassador, you've been given the Denobulans our response. Now I'm tasking you with backing it up. You have full authority and every resource to prepare our defenses for the coming onslaught. Get it done. Murphy straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, even as adrenaline surged through his veins. He'd thrown down the gauntlet to the galaxy's fiercest power. Now he had just months to somehow give humanity a fighting chance against them. As one, the nations of Earth readied for war. Armies mustered, weapons factories churned, and cities turned into fortresses. A grim resolve hardened in the people. There would be no surrender, no retreat. They would fight for their homes, their freedom, their very existence, and they would not go quietly. Slipping through the stars, Murphy raced to gather allies and arms. He parlayed with a dozen worlds long resentful of Denobulan domination, stoking the embers of resistance. Pacts were sealed, pledging ships and support when Earth made its stand. From the reclusive Eld, he bartered for particle lances and Nova shields. The militant Krill provided singularity torpedoes and mass drivers. His cargo holds filled with tools of war never before wielded by human hands. Earth hung silent and waiting as the fateful hour approached. Squadrons of fighters and task forces of cruisers and destroyers held vigil in high orbit. Titan cannons and nuclear arrays pointed to the heavens in grim anticipation. On every screen, Ambassador Murphy spoke to the waiting world, his voice hard with resolve. For all our history, humanity has fought. We fought each other, and we fought the very planet we call home. We've waged war for land, for wealth, for ideals. But today, at long last, we fight as one. Not for riches or glory, but for the right to wake up tomorrow under an Earth sun, on Earth soil. Today, we fight for our future. Across the globe, soldiers tensed and civilians prayed. In the skies, pilots' hands tightened on controls as on the ground, gunners aimed at the stars. and on the flagship Unity-1, Donald Murphy stood proud and tall as the first massive warships of the Denobulan fleet materialized in flashes of radiation and ozone. This was it, the moment of truth. The fate of the human race would be decided here, under the light of their native sun. Come what may, they would not go gently into the night. Earth would fight. As the silhouettes of Denobulan warships winked into existence at the edges of the solar system, alarms blared across Earth's defense network. In the command bunker buried beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Ambassador Donald Murphy hunched over a tactical holomap, his eyes hard as he watched the enemy armada assume attack formation. "This is it, people. The ball's in play," he said, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his gut. Around him, uniformed officers and technicians scrambled to their stations, voices rising in a cacophony of status reports and orders. "All planetary defense platforms, armed particle lances, and singularity torpedoes. I want those krill mass drivers locked and loaded. Orbital fighter squadrons, prepare for launch on my mark." Murphy's commands cut through the chaos like a knife. He studied the holomap intently, his mind racing through strategies and contingencies. This was the moment he'd been preparing for, the crucible in which humanity's fate would be forged. On the screens, Earth's hodgepodge fleet moved to intercept the invaders. Sleek Terran cruisers and bulky cargo freighters retrofitted with alien guns glided into formation alongside Eld destroyers and krill battleships, a ragtag armada united by grim necessity. The first Denobulan warships opened fire, lances of Nova-hot plasma streaking towards the defenders. But before they could impact, shimmering energy barriers sprang into existence around Earth's ships. The Eld Nova shields, a gift Murphy had bartered for at great cost. The shields held against the onslaught, and Earth's fleet surged forward to meet the enemy head-on. Space lit up as the two armadas clashed, a storm of fire and shrapnel. Denobulan ships reeled as Eld particle beams and cryo mass rounds tore through their hulls. Singularity torpedoes imploded in flashes of ultraviolet light, dragging enemy cruisers into oblivion. But the Denobulans gave as good as they got, and Earth's ships took heavy losses. Damaged cruisers limped away, trailing atmosphere, while shattered frigates tumbled and burned. In his command bunker, Murphy gritted his teeth as red icons winked out on the holomap, each one representing lives snuffed out in the cold of space. But he pushed aside the sorrow. There would be time to mourn later, if any of them survived. He barked new orders, redirecting his forces to shore up faltering defense lines and exploit gaps in the enemy formation. Under Murphy's deft command, the ragtag Terran fleet held its own against the Denobulan onslaught. Outmatched in numbers and firepower, they fought with tenacity and valor, buying time with blood. Pilots pulled daring maneuvers, capital ships unleashed blistering broadsides, and the planetary guns hurled streams of ordnance into the void. The invaders found themselves facing a species that would not go quietly. But the Denobulans kept coming, heedless of their losses, driven by the iron will of their emperor. For every ship they lost, two more surged forward, fresh and eager for the kill. Earth's losses mounted, and Murphy knew they were on borrowed time. All they could do was make the enemy bleed for every inch of space. On the bridge of his flagship, Emperor Taurus snarled in frustrated rage as his initial assault wave faltered. The monkeys were not supposed to resist like this. His fleet was the mailed fist of the Denobulan Empire, an unstoppable force that had ground hundreds of worlds beneath its heel. And yet these primitives dared to defy him. Enough! Taurus slammed a clawed fist onto the armrest of his command throne, his eyes blazing with wrath. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their cities. Let them see the price of defiance. At the Emperor's command, the Denobulan ships reoriented, their spinal cannons thrumming with power. Cobalt beams of superheated plasma lanced down from orbit, stabbing into Earth's atmosphere. Where they struck, cities became funeral pyres. Mumbai, Tokyo, New York, London. The names became a litany of loss as the Denobulan bombardment rained destruction upon Earth's metropolises. Buildings melted, Streets vaporized, and millions perished in the blink of an eye as the fleet methodically obliterated humanity's centers of industry and population. The once blue marble of Earth became pocked with ugly scars of blackened glass and debris. In his bunker, Murphy clenched his fists in helpless rage as damage reports flooded in from the surface. The denobulins were going to scorch the Earth, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. As Earth reeled from the devastating denobulin assault, news reached Murphy that changed everything. Emperor Taurus was dead, killed in the chaos of battle. The denobulin empire fractured overnight as rival warlords and factions scrambled to fill the power vacuum. Murphy pored over intelligence reports, searching for any advantage Earth could exploit. His eyes widened as he read about Grand Admiral Kex, an ambitious denobulin commander consolidating power. Kex was marshaling a massive fleet, and Earth sat squarely in his crosshairs. "We can't let him reach Sol," Murphy said, smacking his head on the war room table. "We have to hit him first." President Xander nodded grimly. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" Murphy outlined his plan. Earth's battered defenses couldn't withstand another full-scale invasion. But if they struck first, they might cripple Kex's fleet before it could pose a threat. Days later, Murphy crouched in the cargo hold of a denobulin freighter, surrounded by his hand-picked team of commandos. They'd adopted denobulin worker disguises, right down to prosthetic scales and ridged foreheads. As the ship docked at the massive Zaldan shipyards, Murphy's pulse raced. One mistake and they'd be caught. The team split up, moving through the sprawling facility with affected nonchalance. They planted demolition charges at key structural points, reactors, and weapons caches. Murphy's hands shook slightly as he armed each explosive, knowing discovery meant certain death. A commotion near the command center caught Murphy's attention. A decorated denobulin was striding through, flanked by an entourage of officers. Murphy's blood ran cold as he recognized Grand Admiral Kex from intelligence briefings. "Now!" Murphy hissed into his communicator. He slammed his hand on the detonator. The shipyard erupted in a chain of devastating explosions. Kex's triumphant inspection turned to chaos as the station tore itself apart around him. Murphy and his team fought their way to their hidden shuttle, exchanging fire with panicked denobulin security forces. As Murphy's shuttle blasted free of the disintegrating shipyard, denobulin warships swarmed to intercept. The human commando team found themselves in a frantic dogfight, weaving through debris fields as they struggled to reach their stealth carrier. Murphy gripped the shuttle's controls, barrel rolling to avoid a barrage of plasma fire. His mind raced. They dealt Kex a crippling blow, but at what cost? As his battered shuttle limped into the carrier's hangar bay, Murphy knew the real war was just beginning. Murphy's shuttle docked with the carrier just as alarms blared across Earth's defense network. Kex's invasion force had arrived. The sky above Earth darkened as thousands of denobulin warships materialized in flashes of light. Wave after wave poured through the breach points, a seemingly endless armada blotting out the stars. In the command bunker, Murphy sprinted to the tactical holodisplay. His face paled as he took in the sheer scale of the assault. "Status report," he barked. "Sir, we're detecting over 10,000 denobulin vessels," an analyst replied, voice quavering. "They've brought reinforcements from at least a dozen conquered worlds." Murphy's mind raced. This was it, the long-dreaded final battle for Earth's survival. He keyed the comm to address all Earth forces. "This is Ambassador Murphy. The enemy is here in force, but we are ready. We will not falter. For Earth." A chorus of determined voices echoed his call as humanity's defenders moved to engage. Murphy turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare bioweapon strike on Kex's flagship. Let's give the bastards a nasty surprise." Minutes later, precision-guided missiles streaked towards the massive denobulin command ship. They detonated in silent flashes, releasing clouds of microscopic nanites. Alarms blared on the denobulin bridge as crew members began collapsing, overcome by the virus-like bioweapons. Kex raged as systems across his ship malfunctioned, sowed with chaos. Murphy allowed himself a grim smile as the denobulin fleet's formation wavered. He'd bought precious time to position Earth's forces. Now the real fight would begin. All units engage at will for Earth. Space lit up as the two armadas clashed in fury of fire and destruction. The final battle for humanity's future had begun. The victory over the Denobulans came at a terrible cost. Earth lay in ruins, its cities reduced to ash and rubble. But humanity endured. They rebuilt. They reached out to other worlds that had suffered under Denobulan rule, forging alliances and trade agreements. For a time, it seemed a new era of peace and cooperation might dawn. But old wounds festered. Decades passed, and the fragile coalition of free worlds began to crack. Donald Murphy stood at the viewport of Terran 1, Earth's orbital defense station. His once black hair had gone silver, his face lined with the burdens of leadership. He gazed down at the blue marble of Earth, restored to its former beauty. Yet the scars of war remained visible, even from orbit. A chime sounded. Murphy turned as Admiral Chen entered, datapad in hand. "Another border skirmish, sir," Chen reported. "The Krill and Eld are at each other's throats again. Accusations of resource theft, territorial violations. It's getting ugly." Murphy nodded wearily. "And our peacekeepers?" "Caught in the crossfire. 2 ships damaged, minimal casualties." Murphy's expression resolute. He'd seen this coming for years. The slow unraveling of everything they'd fought for. Petty grievances and ancient hatreds bubbling to the surface, threatening to tear apart the very alliances that had freed them all from Denobulan tyranny. "Sir," Chen hesitated, "there's more." Murphy turned, seeing the concern etched on the Admiral's face. "We've intercepted disturbing intelligence from the former Denobulan territories. A new warlord has emerged, calling himself Zora. He's reuniting the fractured remnants of the Empire." Murphy's blood ran cold. "How?" "Brutality, mostly. Executions, mass reprisals. But he's cunning, too. Exploiting old loyalties, promising a return to Denobulan supremacy." Murphy paced, mind racing. "Weapons?" Chen's voice dropped. "That's the worst part, sir. We have confirmation he seized multiple bioweapon caches, including mutagen plagues capable of wiping out entire species." Murphy stopped, facing the viewport again. Below, Earth spun on, blissfully unaware of the gathering storm. He thought of all they'd sacrificed, all the blood spilled to win their freedom, and now it might all be for nothing. "Get me President Reeves," Murphy said, his voice hard. "We need to act, now." Hours later, Murphy stood before the Terran Security Council. The chamber buzzed with tension as he laid out the threat. "We can't wait," Murphy argued. "Every day Zora grows stronger. If we don't strike now, we may not get another chance." Ambassador Krell of the Eld rose, mandibles clicking in agitation. "This is madness. You speak of preemptive nuclear strikes? Have you learned nothing from the cycle of violence that nearly destroyed us all?" Others voiced similar concerns. The Krill representative, the Valari delegation, all urged caution, diplomacy, anything but another war. Murphy's frustration mounted. Couldn't they see? This wasn't about revenge or glory. It was about survival. President Reeves listened to the debate, her face grave. Finally, she raised a hand for silence. "I've heard your concerns," she said, "but the threat is real and immediate. We cannot afford to wait." She turned to Murphy. "Ambassador, you have authorization. Hit Zora's shipyards and weapons facilities, hard and fast, before he can use those plagues." Murphy nodded, ignoring the outcry from the alien representatives. He strode from the chamber, already planning the assault that would change the course of galactic history once again. Days later, Murphy stood in the war room of Terran 1, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of Earth's stealth strike craft. Each carried a payload of precision nuclear warheads, capable of vaporizing Zora's strongholds while minimizing collateral damage. "All units in position," reported the tactical officer. "Awaiting your command, sir." Murphy took a deep breath. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on him. If he was wrong, if this backfired, no. He couldn't afford doubt. Not now. Execute, Murphy said. Across 3 star systems, Earth's unmanned craft emerged from stealth, unleashing their payloads in a carefully coordinated strike. Murphy watched the sensor feeds as brilliant flashes erupted on planet surfaces and in orbital shipyards. Zora's fleet, caught completely off guard, disintegrated under the atomic fury. For a moment, elation surged through Murphy. They'd done it. They'd crushed the threat before it could fully materialize. Then the reports began flooding in. "Sir," Chen's voice was tight with horror, "we're detecting massive bioweapon releases on multiple worlds. Zora, he survived. He's unleashing everything he has left." Murphy's blood ran cold as the magnitude of their miscalculation became clear. They'd wounded the beast, but failed to kill it. And now, billions would pay the price for that failure. The war room erupted into chaos as the full scope of the catastrophe unfolded. Entire populations withered and died as Zora's plague swept across worlds that had supported Earth's strike. The coalition, already strained to the breaking point, shattered completely in the face of such devastation. Murphy stood amid the pandemonium, watching helplessly as everything he'd fought for crumbled to ash. The path to lasting peace, so tantalizingly close, now seemed further away than ever before.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.